I'd now like to invite Andrew Roberto, City Council member, to the stage to introduce Governor Phil Bredesen.
I want to thank everyone in this room for the opportunity to serve you as a Knox County Election Commissioner and now on City Council, where I'm very proud to serve with 4 incredible progressive women. And this is an exciting time to be a Democrat. There's an energy building as we look to elect Democrats. I've seen this energy firsthand as I was out last fall knocking on doors all over Knoxville. I met so many incredible people, including one nice lady. When I knocked on her door, the window opened at the 2nd floor. She stuck her head out and she said, "Democrat or Republican?" And I said, "I'm a Democrat." And she said, "I'm coming down. I want a yard sign." In this landscape of leaders unwilling to work together to progress the needs of our people, unwilling to stand up for our common values of fairness and opportunity for all, a call rings out across this state and our nation: fix it, Phil. It is my distinct honor to introduce to you this evening a man uniquely qualified by virtue of his compassion, his integrity, his courage to seek out solutions to our common struggles, with a proven desire to better our future for all of us. A leader that has proved that a Democrat can win all 95 counties in Tennessee. And Knox County twice. Let's show them how much energy there is here in Knoxville. Fellow Democrats, I give you the next senator from the great state of Tennessee,
This is more Democrats than I thought were in that. Great, thank you so much. Listen, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me here this evening, and it's great to be here with you. I know there's a number of candidates out there. I won't try to certainly recognize all of them, but to each and every person who is running, and certainly to Carl Dean and Craig Fitzhugh, who picked to be here a little later to talk to you, who are running statewide. I look forward to working with you and running with you and being a part of this process. I wanted to take my time here tonight with you all to do a couple of things. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my race and why I'm doing this and what I'm in, and I think that also leads in a way to talking a little bit about things that I think the Democratic Party, that our Democratic Party needs to be doing to become relevant and to start winning elections across our state again. When I left the governor's office, I had, to be honest, no intention of running for office again. I've spent 16 years, 8 years as mayor and 8 years as governor. I really enjoyed it. They were the 2 best jobs I've ever had. But I also think it's okay to spend a part of your life doing that and then go on and do other kinds of things. When Bob Corker said he was not going to run again in October, I started getting a lot of calls from people, including some people in this room here tonight, saying, "Look, Bill, you ought to just think about this again a bit." And I did. And Andrea and my wife and I sat down and really talked about it. One of my questions was obviously, given the way the state is today, is this a suicide mission? I'm a little bold to be doing suicide mission. We did some research and some polling and the kind of stuff you might think, and the answer is not at all. It's a very doable thing, and it certainly is possible. The larger question, though, in my mind was really in our mind was really why are you doing this? We are fortunate enough at this point in life to have a lot of options. I am old enough that if I'm successful in this, I will spend a significant part of the rest of my life getting out of plane and traveling back and forth to Washington and doing this. So it really ought to be for the best of reasons. It ought to be what I really want to do, what we both really want to do with our lives at this point. And we talked a lot about that, about kind of going back over our lives and what's been important and what are the kinds of things you'd like to do here to do what would certainly be the last sort of working effort of my career. And I think we all have these times in life when there's a branch, when you take one branch or the other, and life turns out a little differently depending on which one you took, and there's plenty of those. I came to realize that there was a big one of that sort in my life, and it actually was when I was very young, when I was 7 years old. My family, we lived in Arlington, Massachusetts. My father found a woman he liked a lot better than my mother, and left one day, sort of cleaning out the bank accounts, and just left the family there. My mother had a high school education but had never worked. So the situation that our family was in was she had no money, she was hundreds of miles from home. She had a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old child. I was a 7-year-old. And that is a story that often doesn't turn out well. It doesn't turn out well for the kids, it doesn't turn out well for that family. In my case, it turned out okay. What happened is we moved back to Shortsville, New York, where I consider myself to grow up. We moved in with my grandmother, who had a house there. She was a widow. I went to the local public school. It was a one-school district, one 3-story school that had grades 1 through 12 in it. And then eventually went on from there to go to college and with Andrea to come to Tennessee and make my career here. The environment that I was in was not a sophisticated environment. My grandmother had a 4th grade education. She had 11 children. One of them had a college degree, somebody who got into the military. She worked as a teller in the local bank. My grandmother took in sewing. She was a seamstress and took sewing into her house for a living. But the more I thought about that, and Andrea and I talked about it a lot, it was an environment that really was rich in opportunity, and that's what made all the difference in my life. We had a secure environment. My grandmother owned her house. My life would have been very different if my mother had to go from job to job and apartment to apartment as all the time that I was growing up. Importantly, I had some wonderful teachers who really took an interest in me. I was one of the very few. I didn't even know anybody else who was a single parent family, whereas today, of course, it's the most ordinary thing in the world. I think for that reason, a lot of teachers took a real interest in me and helped me through things. When it came time to go to college, there was a college loan program at the time. They were called NDEA loans, National Defense Education Act loans, which were really designed to help you go to college at a reasonable price and pay it off reasonably, as opposed to make a lot of money for banks and financial intermediaries, which is where I think we are today. And it went on, even after I got to Nashville and wanted to start a company, there were some people who were willing to provide some seed capital and so on. So, the difference in my life from what might have happened to a family like that, I think really was, it was an opportunity-rich environment. There were doors that were cracked open a little bit at really important times in my life. I don't think I think that's what people want. And most people, they don't want things given to them up and down, but they do want those doors open that they have a chance to work their way through. And it occurred to me that, that was the most important thing to me, and that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. If I can spend the next 6 years or the next 12 years finding ways to open those doors of crack for people, I can think of nothing I'd rather do with my life at this point than that. And obviously, in the federal government, there's a lot of things that you can do that really do help provide those opportunities for people. It's not all just about local family and friends. There's a lot of other kinds of opportunities. Healthcare is one. I mean, healthcare and health problems are one of the big killers of opportunity out there for people. And I think there's so much that we can do to stabilize what we have and to reach out and to make healthcare available. I think public health is very important. I think for young people in school, health services, and particularly some of the mental health services that some young people kind of need to be successful, is really, really important. I think access to college and having reasonable programs that allow you to borrow and get money in various ways to go to college and be able to pay it back over a period of time are important. I'm really interested, I've always been interested in jobs. I think everybody needs to have a good, stable job that they're proud, and work that they're proud of, and they can take care of their family. There's 1,000 things that go on in the federal government to help make that happen. I have a huge interest in small businesses, and there are a lot of ways in which some of the regulations which were put in place relative to big businesses in response to some of these problems that have come up over the years are really killing smaller businesses and making things very difficult. I think there's a lot of ways in which you can deal with that regulatory environment and still at the same time protect people from the things they needed to be protected with. And overarching all the rest of that is just really the need to kind of get DC working again in some way, to get out of this mode of everybody standing in opposite corners of the room and yelling at each other or throwing bricks at each other. During the time I was governor, for those of you who remember that, were here, I worked really hard to make sure that everything we did was done with some plenty of people on both sides of the aisle. We were going to get some stuff done. We were going to find ways to do it. Everything we did, from all the stuff we did in higher education and K through 12, the 10-care reforms that unfortunately had to make. We were very careful to get them all done in a way that they were sustainable and they had that kind of support. Now that tells you why I would like to do this, okay, and what I was thinking. I also think, in that progression of my thinking, I think there's a real lesson for my party, for the Democratic Party, in this as well. Just being technical for a second, we've done polling since I started running for mayor with the same pollster, so I've got a long sort of history of polling that goes back. The interesting thing about what's happened in Tennessee is the number of Republicans has not changed at all. For the last 15 or 20 years, it's all self-declared in our state, of course, but the number of Republicans hovered right around 42 or 43% of the population. What has changed in our state is enormous numbers of Democrats no longer call themselves Democrats, they call themselves independents. The Democratic Party has gone down, the Independent Party has gone up, and they've been voting more conservatively and more Republican in that process. It's been going on for a long time. I can remember in 2004, right after I was elected governor, campaigning for, I think they were state house candidates in some of the smaller communities across the state. I remember vividly walking down one street, which was a street of relatively small houses. They might have been 1,400 or 1,500 square foot, rectangular brick houses, and they had a carport on the side with some concrete steps on the front and some bicycles in the yard. It was a nice neighborhood, but a very sort of working class neighborhood. These were people who were in construction and some of the health services and that kind of stuff. And I remember thinking, this is the kind of neighborhood that ought to be and used to be, and we Democrats would claim to be, a democratic neighborhood. These are the classical people that an FDR appealed to. except that these houses all had Bush Cheney signs in the front yard. And it really said to me that we are some way sort of missing out on, we're claiming to represent people who are not, they're not responding to our representation. I think our party, the party of the National Label, may be what people in California are looking for, but I think increasingly it's not what people in Tennessee and lots of places out in the middle of this country are expecting out of their party. And I think we need to start moving our party in a direction where it can be more competitive that way. And there's in business schools. There's a story I've heard several people tell that professors will use to illustrate something. And there's a board meeting going on, and it's a company, it's a cat food company. And they're having problems. And so one person stands up and says, oh, the problem here is public relations. Our competitors are saying things about us that are bad, and we're not responding right. And somebody else said, no, it's the packaging. We need to redesign the can this food is in and to put a better looking cat on the outside of the can and make it look better. And somebody else said, oh, no, it's advertising. We need a new advertising agency, be much more aggressive and creative about the kind of advertising we do. Then in this boardroom, there was a young intern working in the board, maybe a young girl, working some papers over on the side, and the chairman of the board was sort of feeling full of himself, and so he says over here, he says, yes, young lady, you've heard all this discussion and you're studying business. What do you think? Which of these things do you think we ought to do? And she said, well, sir, I think you ought to make cat food that the cats like to eat. As a way of just saying the lesson here, I think, is I really think our party has got to engage in some more ways with the kinds of things that a lot of people want us to be working on. I mentioned I grew up in Shortsville in upstate New York, and then my grandmother had 11 children. So I have a large extended family in upstate New York. I have 28 cousins, and they've all had kids and grandkids at this point and so on. I will bet you that 70% of them, it's a very kind of working class and middle class group, I'll bet 70% of them voted for Donald Trump. I know them. They're not racist. They're not crazy. They don't have an IQ of 80. They're just people who the culture is different than in an urban setting. They looked at Washington. They didn't see anything going on that they think is relative to things that they really care about in their lives. And I think what they do is they were just throwing a Hail Mary pass. So I'm not getting what I want now. Let's try something. Let's just try something different. And to me, the future of the party has got to be to start to re-engage with the real needs and the concerns of just a lot of these ordinary people. I think in some ways we've gotten too elite in our concerns, and we need to deal with it. There was a CNN story. This is 2, 3, 4 days ago. It was headlined. It was about this campaign. It was headlined: Bredesen running against his party or against the Democratic Party or something. And I said, I called the guy back up and I said, that's not right. I'm not running against the party, but I really am saying my party, I think, has got to tack a little bit off of the direction we're in now if it wants to be successful and start winning more elections in places that aren't 200 miles from one of the oceans. And getting re-engaged with the kind of thing that an FDR was engaged with, to be a muscular party that is really focused on opportunity, as I just said, that's giving people those open doors that they need, get rid of some of the fluff, and to really settle down and figure out how to make people's lives better and to open doors for them. And if we can do that, I think we can be very successful again. I honestly believe, not everyone in this room would agree, I honestly believe we need to get rid of this identity politics. I think it is, we're doing that. We're being dismissive of people who are treating that way. We're saying to people that we're going to vote, you're supposed to vote based on who you are, not on what you believe or what you need. I'd like to see us move away from that and really find the common thread in the desires of everybody who is an American in our country. I think we need to increase our cultural tolerance. We pride ourselves on being very open to immigrant populations, for example. I think that's absolutely right and absolutely correct. But we also need to be tolerant of a lot of different cultures in this country, which are not necessarily the same as you might have here in Knoxville or I might have in Nashville. And I'd like to see us, I'd like to see us lead from Tennessee. Rather than us looking to what somebody is saying out of Washington, this party is about, I think we need to be pushing back and saying, no, this is what I think the Democratic Party is about. This is the kind of things I think we should be concentrating on. We've got the ability to do it. Tennessee is a state that is really a very median state in the country. People do product testing all the time in Tennessee because we're representative of the country in a lot of different broad ways. So I look at it that a strategy and an approach to politics that would work in Tennessee is something that actually would work very broadly across our country. And I'd love to see us and the Democratic Party in this state not following what's going on in Washington or California or New York or Massachusetts, but kind of helping to lead them back to a different way of looking at this. We need to have a big tent. We need to have look for the common aspirations of people in this country. We need to look for ways of creating that kind of opportunity. And most importantly, to just start speaking to everybody as an American, not worrying about whether they're red or blue or black or white or brown or where they're from, but speak to everybody in their common aspirations. I believe that in this election, if I can do this, I can be successful. And I really believe that if our party can do this, we can once again reestablish the sort of vigorous two-party system that has really served this state this well when it has been in that when we've been in that mode. I appreciate the invitation to be here tonight. I very much love our state. I love being a Democrat in our state, and I'm looking forward to being with each and every one of you working on this, not only in this election and this year, but for many, many years to come. Thank you all very much.
I'm now proud to invite to the stage Carl Dean. Mayor.
Well, that's a hard act to follow, I'm going to say. I don't have an instrument or anything else. It's great to be here with you tonight, and it's great to see so many Democrats. What I want to do is just tell you a little bit about myself, why I'm running for governor, and what I think the important issues are in this campaign. My background is I'm a lawyer. I came to Nashville in 1978 to go to Vanderbilt Law School. And the big thing that happened to me in law school was not so much torts or property law, was that I met a woman, Ann Davis, who's here, my wife. Ann is a national native and a whole lot smarter than me. She started the Tennessee office for the Southern Environmental Law Center. And we fall in love, and so we have a discussion about where we should live after we get married for about a couple of years. And I live in Nashville, Ann's home. And it's the best thing that could ever happen to me. We raised 3 kids here in Tennessee. My son, Rasco, is a lawyer in Nashville, and he and his wife have 1 child, our only grandchild. And we have 2 daughters who, one graduated in January of this year from college, and one will graduate in about a week and a half. After leaving law school, I became a public defender, and that work was really important to me. I felt every day I was doing things that were helping people, that were making people's lives better, protecting their rights, trying to help them get the help they needed, making sure that they had good representation. But I also learned a lot. I learned a lot about alcoholism. I learned a lot about drug addiction. I learned a lot about poverty, and I learned a lot about education. Because the vast majority of my clients were high school dropouts. My juvenile clients, and I handled some very serious cases, were 12, 13, 14 years old, and they just stopped going to school and nobody did anything about it. I eventually ran for public defender in Nashville, was elected in 1990 and re-elected in 94 and 98. And then when Bill Purcell became mayor in 1999, Bill and I, who had been assistant public defenders together back in the 80s, he tells people we met in jail, he asked me to leave the public defender's office and become the director of law for the city, that basically run the city's law department. And I did that. And then in 07, I ran for mayor. And I was elected and took office in September of 07. And I had really 2 very different terms as mayor. My first term, I came into office, the city was growing at a decent rate, things were good. But about 9 or 10 months later, we went into the Great Recession. And we had to make difficult decisions. We had to make cuts to balance the budget, which I think, we need to always have a balanced budget and have fiscal integrity. And I did that. But I wouldn't cut education. We looked for ways to fund education, which I thought was the most important issue facing our city. And I wouldn't cut public safety. We looked for ways to improve public safety, and we found some. And I continued to work hard on economic development. On top of the recession in 2010, we had a flood, which was devastating. A couple billions of dollars in private property damage and hundreds of millions in private, a couple of million in private property damage and hundreds of millions in public property damage. But the story of the flood will always be the volunteers in the city who came and got the city back up on its feet. But as we invested in the city, whether it was building a new convention center, whether it was recruiting business into the city, we started seeing changes and we started seeing growth, and we emerged from the recession. We got the TV show Nashville, and whatever you think of the show, if you're the mayor of Nashville and you get a primetime television show on ABC named Nashville, that is a good thing. We were called the It City by the New York Times, and cranes started appearing everywhere. And so by the end of my first term, we were in a boom, and that continues to this day. So during the second term, I was able to do things that I wanted to do from the beginning. We moved starting teacher pay in Nashville from 30th in the state to 3rd. We increased the state school budget by 37%, and we spent over $625 million on capital programs for schools. We invested in greenways and parks. We did a sort of a cutting-edge open space plan for the city where we put aside thousands of acres for the future. And, it was a very different term. Since leaving office at the end of September of 2015, I've been teaching at Belmont University. And I decided to run for governor because I'm convinced the people of Tennessee want a governor who's going to have common sense, be pragmatic, be sort of a get-it-done person. I do not think they want an extremist. I don't think that people of Tennessee want somebody who's just totally committed to the party line. They want somebody who's going to focus on the issues that matter to people. I've run for office as for mayor in a nonpartisan race. I had to get Democrats, Republicans, Independents to vote for me. And then when you're managing a city, you do it in a way in which you're trying to make the city a better place, and you're trying to move the city forward. You don't do it on a partisan way. I think the big issues facing our state are, number 1, public education. That's something I have been passionate about my entire public career. We need to be a state that produces more college graduates, but we also need to be a state that understands that not everyone is going to go to college, and we need to have technical programs, apprenticeship programs that will put people in a position to earn a good living. We need to pay our teachers better. I can tell you that as I cross the state, whether I am in Memphis or whether I'm in Johnson City and points in between, I hear from almost everybody that the concerns about teacher pay. I talked to a group of STEM providers in Memphis. They're losing teachers to the private sector because the pay is not adequate. You talk to rural superintendents and they'll tell you that they're losing teachers to other districts in Tennessee. They're losing teachers to Georgia because the salaries are just not competitive. You know, there are a lot of different theories, ideas about education, but I think we all agree that what happens in the classroom is the key. And having a great teacher is the important thing, and we got to attract and keep the best. The second issue I talk a lot about is economic opportunity. Have you been a mayor during a great recession? Have you been a mayor during a great boom? I understand the importance of having a strong private sector that's producing jobs, creating opportunities, and letting people live the American dream, letting them get ahead. We need to do that. We need to focus on the areas of the state, particularly rural and small towns that are struggling. We need to make sure the places that are being left behind are brought up with the rest of the state. There can be no forgotten people in our state. And so issues like rural broadband or infrastructure investment are very important to me. And then the issue that I get asked about probably more than anything else in this campaign is healthcare. And healthcare is, I think, an enormous issue for our state. I'm a big believer in proactively dealing with health and preventative health. I think we have to consider health before people get chronically ill. You know, if you look at the big public health indicators, there's like 10 or 12 of them: obesity, diabetes, low birth weights, women's health. Tennessee ranks in the bottom 10 in all of them. We've got to do better there. But the big issue now is access to health care. The failure of the state legislature to do Medicaid expansion is the biggest mistake the legislature's made that I can remember. In financial terms, we have lost over $4 billion, right? How it's affected citizens? We have hundreds of thousands of people without insurance. We have people who go to the emergency room and they're left with medical bills that can ruin their family. We have people not seeking medical care because they don't think they can because they don't have insurance. And as a result of the failure to do the Medicaid expansion, Tennessee is only second to Texas in the number of hospital closures. We've had 10 hospitals close. And that's happened in small towns and that's happened in rural areas. And when you talk about economic development, you know, first you worry about the people who live in these towns where health care is now 35, 45 minutes away. You have a heart attack, you have appendicitis, your child breaks your leg, you have a long way to go. But we need to make sure that we're doing all that we can to get these hospitals back and running, because you can't attract people and you can't attract business without a hospital. So those are the issues I'm campaigning on. I feel very, very good about the campaign. We've been to 92 counties. We've been working hard for a long time, and I think we're in good shape. I'm asking for your vote, I'm asking for your help, and thank you for being Democrats.
I'll get it together this time. I'd like to invite candidate for governor to the stage, Craig Fitzhugh.
My goodness, good evening, everybody. It's great to be here. When I drove up, I thought, man, there's a lot of cars out here, and I said, they must be having something up at the art museum. And then Then I turned the corner and came into this room, and it's just exciting for me to be here. But I got even more excited, and I'm still working on slowing the heart rate down a little bit when these candidates lined up here. Aren't they a great bunch of people that are running for public office? My goodness. Well, I'm just going to speak to you just for a little while tonight. It's super great to see my old boss, Governor Bredesen, here tonight. When he was governor, I was fortunate enough to carry his budget, and that's the only thing constitutionally that the legislature is required to do. Sometimes I wish we would remember that, the legislature. But anyway, it's wonderful for me to be here with y'all tonight. I first came to Knoxville 50 years ago. 50 years ago, and the reason I came here was to be the first person in my family that went to a college. And I left a county that was smaller than this university. I was the first in my family, and my girlfriend and wife came the next year, and she became the first in her family to graduate from UT. And since that time, we have contributed to UT in the form of my family of 11 degrees. So we're very proud of that. It was a whole new world, and a whole new world for me. I was happy that I got accepted into that world. And as I said, besides choosing the person that I married, my salvation decision, the best and most rewarding choice in my life was to attend the University of Tennessee. Not only for the education I received, but for the lifelong relationship with this great city and its residents, the best of whom are here tonight. If I didn't live in Ripley, Tennessee, I've told many people I'd live right here. I appreciate this town so much. And in honor of that, we're getting ready to kick off what we call a 24-stop tour, because I've been in the legislature 24 years, and we're going from Knoxville to Nutbush. I think you know why I'm starting in Knoxville, but the reason I'm ending in Nutbush is because my one claim to fame is that I had a babysitter when I was growing up. Her name was Anna Mae Bullock. Some of you might know her as Tina Turner, so I'm so proud of that. But anyway, and I'm Craig Fitzhugh. I'm a Vault for life, and I'm running to be your next governor. I just finished my 24th year in the General Assembly, and I am so proud to be the Democratic leader of the House Caucus. It's been the honor of my life. It's been the honor of my life to lead this tenacious and dedicated group of public servants we call the Fighting 25. Public servants like Representative Rick Staples, who I'm so proud of, got a great start and a great reputation up there amongst Democrats and Republicans. He's making a great representative. And I'm also looking forward to Gloria when she returns to the General Assembly. The reason my colleague said, why are you letting her come up here? Because they don't like her. She wears them out, and I just love her. And she wears them out on the issues that matter, as she said. And all these candidates, our legislative candidates will win, and all those at the local level. And we will fight our way back to the majority, and that I'll be ready to assist them in that fight, hopefully from the governor's office. Friends, we're going through some really tough times in our state and nation right now. We're super united here tonight, and that's good. But in my entire life, I cannot think of a time in our country, even the 60s, where we've been so divided. For the past 2 years, the world has seemed to be divided into two camps, us and them. We're seeing racism come to the mainstream with deadly results, as we saw in Charlottesville last year. We're seeing a president who is threatening to jail the media and his opponents. We're seeing scandal at every level, governing through tweets and international relations through threats. But that just doesn't stop at the federal level. In Nashville, we're seeing the same level of vitriol. I can't remember a time since I've served in the legislature that there has been such a feeling of mean-spiritedness. We passed a bill this session, when I say we, the legislature did, that put work requirements on those families that use TennCare. Now, our version of TennCare is Medicaid. And in our version, it only covers parents of young children, the disabled, and their caretakers. So when and how exactly is this population supposed to work? All it is just plain meanness and cold-heartedness. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we are at so much odds in the General Assembly that the majority party refused to disavow neo-Nazis. My father was in World War II against the Nazis, and now his home state would not take a stand against skinheads who came to our state to create chaos. How do we not take a stand on that? Why do members of our legislature who are elected to lead decide to cater to the most base of instincts? Republicans decided it was more important to pass resolutions to encourage President Trump to build a wall on our southern border using our taxes than to stand up for their constituents. We won't survive as a society long like this, friends. Guns and money can't be more important than our children. You know, we can't teach them that lesson. They can't take up the reins of the future with a president that tells them that they are not important. I was so proud this year to march with many of you in this room in the fight for women's rights, and just as proud to march with students and families in the March for Our Lives. I was certainly proud to be a part of this outgoing and this outpouring of concern. But I'm also troubled. Protests on this scale mean that we have discord on a huge scale. Our children shouldn't have to take to the streets and leave their classrooms to ask that there be safety zones for learning. Women, ladies and gentlemen, shouldn't have to march in the streets to be recognized as fully formed human beings who deserve respect. A century and a half after the Civil War, citizens who decide in their own city that they don't want to walk daily past a statue in Memphis that depicts the founder of the KKK in a place of honor should be allowed to make that decision for themselves without reprisal. We recognize the 50th anniversary of the death of Dr. Martin Luther King. While we have come a long way from the days of Dr. King's efforts, we have not just stagnated in other areas, we have sometimes regressed. Racial inequality can be seen in our economic outcomes, in our school systems, and in our justice systems. If we do not invest in our public schools and communities and fill our classroom seats, then we will end up filling our expensive jail cells. If we do not make good jobs accessible, then we will doom communities to another generational cycle of poverty. You know, unemployment is down, and that's great, that's wonderful, but you know what? Tennessee is the nation's leader in the percentage of people trying to live on the minimum wage. That is just not right. We are better than that, ladies and gentlemen, as a state and as a nation. You know, friends, all the things we talk about, racial inequality, gender inequality, economic inequality, it comes down to one thing. It comes down to choices. We have to make choices as the kind of world we want to live in. We can choose to help the sick and the poor. We can choose to make sure that men and women get a fair wage and an equal wage for their work. We can choose to make sure that our children go to safe schools. We can choose not to have the highest incarceration rates in the industrialized world. We can choose to be a welcoming and shining beacon for democracy and freedom. It's a choice. It's a choice for opportunity. That's why I'm running for governor. That choice. I choose to look at the best things we can be as a state. We're doing well in a lot of areas in this state. Around the Capitol in Nashville, there are cranes building new skyscrapers, and I know that's a good signal economically. I'm not worried about those in the skyscrapers. They will do just fine. I'm worried about those in the shadows of the skyscrapers. I'm worried about those who can see the gleaming buildings from a short distance, but their neighborhood is a food desert. It's devoid of economic development, and and may as well be a world away from that prosperity. I'm a rural guy, and I worry about our rural areas, where Tennesseans may have to drive 2 hours to find a hospital, where the hospital in the county where I was born in says the county mayor, our hospital is in the back of an ambulance. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just not right. We lead the nation in the amount of hospital closures, but all because of the choices that we have made thus far. The legislature chose not to expand Medicaid. We have worked and worked to try to take the $4 billion that you and I have paid in taxes, but our legislature would not do that. And it's not too late. If we even expand it for one short period of time, it will help people and keep them from having worse health conditions and give them a road on economic and health prosperity. You know, it's a choice the Republican legislature made time and time again. They've chosen to turn their backs on what the people have said time and time again that they want. They want to expand Medicaid. They want to keep our hospitals open. They don't want to be faced with a choice of how far to drive when someone is having a heart attack. At these moments, political labels don't matter a bit. When a family member is addicted to opioids and you need to find help, a closed hospital is another obstacle in helping not just you, but your community. You know, I know, and we know, money isn't unlimited when it comes to governing. We can't limit our understanding and our compassion, however, when it comes to leading our state. With Medicaid, the money is there and the will of the people is there, but the lack of a political will of a recalcitrant Republican Party kept us from doing what is right. When it comes to taking care of the least of us, those who need a hand up, not a handout, the choice is to make it even more difficult for them, and for what? To score a few political points among the hard-hearted who have never had to struggle and will not put themselves in the shoes of those who have. Now, President Truman, I love that. I've seen that a couple of times. I love that buck stops here thing. President Truman, for whom this event is named, knew about those who struggled. His route to the White House was not a traditional one, but by the time he became Commander-in-Chief, his experience had prepared him for the job. His time as an Army officer in World War I taught him how to lead in tough times. His time as a U.S. Senator honed his skill at negotiating and getting things done for the needs of his constituents in Missouri and for the citizens of our nation. Although Truman was the last president not to have a college degree, he leveraged his intellect and his life experience to end World War II, oversee the Berlin airlift to rebuild Europe, and the beginning of America's economic dominance, and integrated our military. While his time in office was not without controversy, his entire life and political career were marked by his tenacity to be in the conversation, to be in the arena, as fellow President Teddy Roosevelt stated it, and to make a difference. The farm boy from Independence, Missouri became the most powerful person in the world, and he made good on it. He made the choice to give of himself and to sacrifice for the greater good. He used his lifetime of experience and body of work to transform our country and our place in the world. Like Harry Truman, I want to be in that arena. The people in this room know about giving and sacrifice. You all give of your time outside of your jobs and families and live lives to run for office, to support candidates, and to be activists on the front line of our most pressing societal issues. You make the choice to be part of the solution. I have stood with you, I stand with you tonight, and I look forward to standing with you in that arena, in that future. I say, people first, progress for all, and Tennessee always. I ask for your support, I ask for your vote to lead this state, and I thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight.